You know what's crazy? For years, we were told that this family was founded on love choice and faith, that plural marriage, at least in this household, was about unity, not hierarchy, but the actual bombshell, that picture-perfect polygamous fantasy. The Browns sold us wasn't just broken, it was fabricated. And now, all these years later, the truth is seeping out in every interview, every cringeworthy couch moment, every sideways look. It wasn't all dysfunction, it was control disguised as cooperation. Hi friends, I'm Aria, and welcome back to TLC's Next Reveal. If you haven't already, pressed that subscribe button and let me know what you think in the comments, because this one's personal. We're peeling back the curtain on what actually kept the Brown family together and what ultimately destroyed it all. And spoiler alert, it wasn't all jealousy or the lifestyle being difficult or Christine becoming suddenly cold. Recall, this collapse was inevitable because since day one, it was never really equal. Let's take a step back. You've got Kody Brown, the self-proclaimed patriarch, attempting to operate a plural household like a one-man band, four wives each with varying needs, personalities, and life experiences, somehow expected to act as one large, harmonious unit under his leadership. Christine, the nurturing one, Janelle, the practical one, Mary, the first and once favored, and then Robyn, the fourth wife, who came in late but somehow ended up in first place without anyone ever saying it. But we saw it, we all saw it now. At first glance, the Browns appeared revolutionary. They opened up their lives, invited the cameras, and said, "Here we are, plural marriage can work if done with love and communication," and the people purchased it for a while. But behind the scenes, something completely different was simmering over time. The mask fell off. The truth arrived not in words, but in the manner in which they shunned eye contact, the manner in which the older children kept their distance, the manner in which Cody treated disagreements as disobedience, and the manner in which the wives, most notably, the first three, gradually gave up trying. It wasn't one incident that broke the family apart. It was a pattern, years of Cody demanding loyalty, but seldom giving it in return. Years of Robyn being shielded and favored, while the first wives were left to sort it out alone. Silence was survival. To speak up meant to be difficult, to question the rules meant you weren't bound, and the only person permitted to be emotionally reactive was Cody. So when Christine walked away, when Janelle began speaking out, and even when Mary finally ceased defending him, it didn't just rattle the house. It revealed it, because this family didn't break apart in an instant storm. It was already disintegrating quietly, bit by bit, while everybody smiled for the camera. And now the truth is finally being spoken aloud. Christine leaving didn't only shatter the family, it shattered the illusion. And let's be real, nobody saw it coming like that. Not even Cody, because for years, Christine was the wife who smiled through the chaos, Theon of the people who prepared the birthday cakes, preserved traditions, and attempted to keep the family in place when no one else could even manage to look each other in the eye. But inside that smile was concealing a storm, and when she finally turned away, it was not only a goodbye, but a full-blown power shift, and you could sense it the moment she boxed up that box of Cody's things and left it in the garage like garbage awaiting pickup. That moment that was years in the making, years of being discounted, ignored, made to feel like a stranger in her own marriage. Recall when she informed Cody that she didn't want to be in a marriage without intimacy, and he reacted like she was demanding so much, like she was being unreasonable for desiring to be loved. That wasn't merely a relationship problem. That was an individual becoming aware of their own worth. Christine's departure wasn't a tantrum, it was an reckoning. It was her opting for peace rather than proximity, opting for self-respect over overlapping schedules. And it rocked the core of that family, not only because of someone leaving, but because it proved you could leave that. You didn't have to stay stuck in silence just to be faithful. What really caught people off guard was how calm Ein was about it. No screaming, no breakdowns. Just clarity, a woman who had been sidelined for years, finally stepping out of the shadows and saying, I deserve more than this. And the wildest part, she didn't just leave Cody, she left the entire structure that had failed her so long. And then you had Robyn sitting in the same scene, stunned with the look as if someone pulled the rug from under her. If she were terrified, not just of the divorce, but of what it represented for her authority. Because if one wife could walk out, perhaps the rest could do the same. Let's not forget Robyn had years of being the compliant one, the mediator, always positioning herself as the one who simply desired love and harmony. But when Christine made her advance, Robyn did not react with compassion. She reacted with fear because control only worked if everyone along played. And Christine, she stopped playing. We saw it in real life. Christine glowing on interviews, laughing again, reconnecting with her kids, literally looking younger, and then Robyn more withdrawn, more bitter, always on edge. Viewers could see the change clear as day. For the first time, someone had called Cody's bluff and walked away stronger. It was such as seeing the entire family unit turned upside down. And here's the thing, Christine wasn't being melodramatic. She wasn't seeking to ruffle feathers. She was just finished, and that alone was revolutionary. To quietly exit a framework you'd been informed was holy that requires more courage than remaining ever did. And when she exited, something shifted in Janelle. Something snapped in Mary and Cody. He began losing control, not only of the family, but of the story. Christine's calmness was infectious, and for the first time in a while, the other wives began to wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, they deserved that too. You know what's crazy for someone who purports to despise drama? Robyn absolutely seems to orbit directly in the middle of it every single episode. And yet somehow, she's always the victim, always the one who wipes away tears as the rest of the family disintegrates around her. But when you actually watch the show, like really watch the pattern, becomes impossible to ignore. Robyn has mastered something very specific. Emotional manipulation disguised as emotional vulnerability on the surface. It appears to be just sad, overwhelmed, heartbroken by all the division in the family. But look a little closer, and you'll see how often that sadness follows directly on the heels of someone else daring to speak their truth. Christine leaves Robyn's crying. Janelle questions Cody. Robyn's crying again. Mary tries to stand up for herself. Cue more tears. But here's the kicker. Those tears don't typically accompany accountability. They accompany guilt. Robyn doesn't own errors. She soaks up attention. She rebrands herself as the one keeping everything together, when in fact, she's the one who gained the most from the collapse. And let's discuss favoritism because the fans, oh, we saw it from the moment she became part of the family. Robyn wasn't another wife. She was the wife Cody spent more time at her house, provided her with more assistance, and even lawfully divorced Mary in order to adopt her children. And you could see it on screen. The other wives weren't speculating, they were watching it, living it. There was that one moment, one of the most revealing scenes where the family was going over money. Janelle coolly explained that she had nothing in her name, no assets at the same time. Robyn lived in the largest house with the most security paid for, in part using family money. And when this became an issue, Robyn didn't say, yeah, let's do this on equal terms. She became defensive suddenly. It was about her sacrifice, her struggles, her victimhood. But come on, who's struggling sitting in a $1,000,000 home? And then there's the house rules affair. During remember Robyn's rules were tougher, and Cody just did what she did. Other wives were sidelined, isolated, and in some instances, such as with Janelle, not even visited for weeks. And what did Robyn do? She played it like she was simply being cautious, just keeping the family safe. But viewers were not fooled. She wasn't doing this only to protect health. She was keeping her access to Cody intact. If it meant cutting the other wives off emotionally, so be it. It's this subtle control that drives people nuts, because Robyn doesn't throw tantrums. Like Cody, she doesn't make threats. She plays nice. She uses soft tones and sad eyes. But the results are the same silence the other women and center herself, and the cherry on top. She's always confused. That's her favorite role. I just don't understand why they don't talk to me. I don't get why there's so much tension, really, Robyn. You don't understand why Christine might feel left out when she hasn't had intimacy in a decade, and you're living in a palace with a fully present husband. You don't get why Janelle's frustrated after contributing financially to the family and ending up with nothing. The truth is, Robyn has become a symbol for everything fans hate about the show's power imbalance, and yet she keeps trying to present herself as the innocent bystander. She'll be like, I just want the family together. It's difficult to believe that, though, when she wasn't the one losing out. She had Cody, she had the means, she had the emotional support. Everyone else was on their own. And here's where things get infuriating. Robyn tends to say things such as, I never wanted to be the favorite. But what she does, what we actually witness on TLC, is another story. She's at the center of all group decisions. She controls confessionals, and when the wives are hurting, she's not the one comforting, but rather she just stays quiet, then tears up afterwards in a solo interview, making everything about how she feels we're not idiots. We've heard the times such as when Maddie was being wed, and then Robyn was somehow the voice of reason talking in a narrator's tone, as if Maddie's personal guide. Although she entered the scene when Maddie was in middle school, or when Robyn spoke of the one who always desired unity but did not allow the other children into her house for dinner. The contradiction is ongoing, and what hurts most is that for years, the other wives remained silent in order to maintain peace. Christine bit her tongue. Janelle avoided confrontation. Even Mary, following the catfishing debacle and years of emotional abandonment, attempted to make it work. Meanwhile, Robyn continued playing the part of the misunderstood saint, never in the wrong, always misconstrued. But viewers recall the timeline. We recall the Vegas years, the Christmas rentals, the breakdowns, and we recall who always seemed to emerge on top. Even when the family was crumbling apart, Robyn might believe she's lying and deceiving others with the ingenuous act. But her heart's comfort in a home constructed on other women's misery is loud. Her tears don't conceal it, they accentuate it, and irrespective of whether she owns up or not. Her role in the family was never impartial. It was guarded, elevated, and sheltered, while the others had to sacrifice. And that's why the public is upset, because this isn't only about feelings. It's about justice, about honesty, about seeing strong, powerful women like Christine and Janelle treated like issues, while Robyn got portrayed as the glue, when in fact she was part of the crack. Now, let's discuss someone who never screamed, never cried for attention, and never played victim, but whose lack in Cody's eyes spoke louder than words ever could. Janelle, for years. She was the strong, quiet presence behind the scenes. Not the loudest, not the most needy, just consistent, rational, robust. But being robust, it happens to mean being overlooked. It's really hurting to see that Janelle donated more money to the Brown family than nearly anyone else, and somehow left with nothing. That's not drama. That's not gossip. That's what she reported herself on camera. She gave and gave and gave. And when it was time to provide for something in her own future, there was nothing remaining for her. What makes this so difficult to swallow is that Janelle never requested much. She wasn't demanding romantic proclamations or daily attention. In Cody's words, she was his buddy wife, and he said that like it was a compliment. But what did that really mean? She helped raise the children, managed finances, maintained the peace. But secretly, was she ever truly regarded as an equal partner? Or was she merely the practical one, the one who would not make a scene? And that's the thing, Janelle did not make scenes. She skirted them, and that made it simpler for Cody to overlook the cracks in their relationship. There were no blow-up fights, no meltdowns at the dinner table, so he didn't have to contend with her demands because she never threw them in his face, but not because she was quiet. Does it mean that she wasn't hurting? You could tell it all over her face those later seasons, particularly when Cody began pulling away into Robyn's circle, making choices without her, hardly consulting her about anything that really counted, and she still tried. She tried. She endured difficult discussions. She continually repeated, "We need to have these conversations." But Cody, he returns. Not yelled, not sobbed, just stated it. And the reality of it slammed like a train. This was not a woman resigning. This was a woman waking up finally. And the distinction, she didn't crave vengeance, she craved peace. And whereas Cody ranted, finger-pointing blame, blame, Christine blame, everyone, Janelle remained steadfast. She allowed the silence to speak. She ceased pursuing him, and in all sincerity that was probably the loudest thing she has ever said. Let's not overlook the money piece either. This is where this gets utterly bungled up. We now also know that Janelle had no home. When she broke up with Cody, she was sleeping in an RV at one point, attempting to make do on the land that she considered family investment. Meanwhile, Robyn had a nice, fully financed home in Utah. Paid-off house. Marie had a rental. Christine had purchased a house she owned herself. Janelle, she had land with nothing built on it, and a whole lot of broken promises, and the frustration wasn't even about money. It was about being misled. Janelle was led to believe that everything was family property, that the money she was coming in was going to help everyone. But when she needed answers, when she posed the question, "What's mine?" she received shrugs. She received evasion. She received gaslit. She even had to tell her at one time that the family dynamic didn't work for her anymore, and that right there is the most unvarnished summation of her path. It fell apart, it ceased to be fair, and when she attempted to remain in the system and yet preserve her dignity, it became apparent that there was no room for her dignity in this house. So she departed. Now, let's return to the question. Did Janelle ever feel equal? The answer, I believe, is no. Not quite, perhaps. She wanted to. Perhaps she believed in plural marriage, sufficient to make herself believe that it was succeeding. But when the deceptions were stripped away, it became clear she was carrying more than her own load. Cody, in the meantime, employed that buddy relationship as a reason not to develop the emotional bond. And when the relationship started to end, he portrayed Janelle as being cold, distant, too independent. But let's get real. He enjoyed that independence when it benefited him. Did not need him for much, he just did not like it. When it meant she was actually able to leave, she did not with fireworks, not with a bang, but with quiet resolve. And somehow that was even stronger than Christine's departure, because Janelle had worked so long to remain outside of the chaos, to be the stable one. And when she finally said enough, it wasn't bitter. It was about self-respect. That's why so many people who have watched are able to relate to Janelle. She is not flashy. She is not dramatic. She is real. She is the one who attempted to keep everything together when she was ignored and when it became too much to bear. She didn't cry for pity. She gathered what she had and began again. So yes, she might have gotten the least of material possessions, but emotionally, spiritually, she gained the most, because Janelle's silent rebellion wasn't about devastation. It was about survival. It was about finally choosing herself, even if it meant beginning over. If there's one person in this whole saga who knows what it means to be intensely loyal and acutely alone, at the same time it's Mary, the first wife, the one who began it all with Cody. And somehow, the person who ended up most alone. Mary's tale is complicated. She wasn't perfect. None of them were. But if you start at the beginning, you'll see that she believed in the dream more than anybody she believed in. Plural marriage and family togetherness, in creating something greater than herself. But somewhere along the way, that dream left her behind. Cody was different with Mary than with the others. To start with, their connection felt real, genuine even. But within no time distance crept in emotional neglect, quiet rejection, that coldness which began creeping until they made it a new norm. It wasn't loud, it wasn't explosive. It was just slow freezing, and Mary stayed in it, hoping things would thaw. They never did. Then the catfishing scandal that instant. Everything changed, and yes, it was messy. Yes, it was embarrassing. But let's be real. Look at what occurred. Mary was starved for attention, for love, for connection, and someone who she believed was real finally made her feel visible. And when the truth emerged, instead of being treated with kindness or even inquiry, she was punished emotionally. Exiled, Cody essentially washed his hands of the man. Even when she was no longer inside the inner circle, you'd find her on the couch, legs inches from Cody's, and yet the emotional space between them was miles apart. And amidst all that, what confused people, what frustrated some fans, even was her loyalty. Why continue to defend a man who had openly rejected her? Why remain loyal to a family who had treated her like this? But that is the thing with Mary. Her loyalty was not only to Cody, it wasn't even completely to the other wives. It was to the concept of the family, the ideal, the mission she believed they were all creating together. The dream of harmony that by the time she was ready to walk away, barely existed. And then there was Christine's new beginning, her relationship with David, her wedding, her joy. And here's what amazed everyone. Mary supported her completely publicly, sincerely, even after everything, even after being iced out of Christine's wedding, even after years of tension and awkwardness. Mary still arrived with kind words and actual grace. No passive-aggressive shade, no insincere smiles, just a simple, mature, almost heartbreaking kind of support. And that tells you everything you need to know about who Mary is. Now, she's been through the fire. She's been humiliated, ignored, isolated, and still emerged from it with enough endurance to root for someone else's happiness. But you can't help but notice how long she lingered, how long she waited for something to change, how she clung to the remnants of a relationship that Cody had already buried. At one point, she informed the cameras that she still harbored hope that perhaps something would change, that perhaps they could reconstruct, and Cody did not even attempt to conceal his lack of interest. He uttered callously, evidently that he did not see it happening. So why did not Mary leave earlier? It's the question fans kept on asking, but perhaps the answer is not as complicated as we assume. Mary was not holding on to Cody, the man she was clinging to. Mary, the wife Mary, the original Mary, the mother of Leon, the lady who initiated all of this entire family and refused to be the first one to leave it. That sense of self mattered. She being the first wife, the lady who agreed to the entire life, prior to the whole show, before all of the mess, prior to all of the glory leaving Cody behind, wasn't just about abandoning a man losing. That meant the loss, the career she had created around it. And regardless of how painful it was, that loss was not easy. But when she did finally leave, when she finally declared she was through with it, wasn't bitter, it wasn't loud, it was quiet, thoughtful, and genuine. She didn't have to blow up. She didn't have to put Cody under the bus. She just looked around, saw what was left over, and decided her future was worth more than scraps. And that choice, that silent last step out the door that had been her power move all these years of being left out, talked over, misunderstood, and made into the scapegoat for jealousies to drama. Mary reclaimed her voice not through yelling, but by walking away without needing Kody's say. So her story is still coming together, and honestly, I hope the next chapter of her life has nothing to do with plural marriage. She's been through enough, she's given enough, and at the very least, she deserves peace, real peace, the kind she never found in that family. So in the end, maybe Mary's loyalty wasn't weakness. Maybe it was endurance. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was pain. Maybe it was all of that wrapped into one. But it's evident now she was dedicated to an idea, not to the man who lost interest in her, not to the system that devoured her, but to the family she believed they all committed to create. As we conclude the saga of the Brown family, it is impossible to disregard the potent changes occurring right before our very eyes. It has been a long, torturous journey for Christine, Janelle, and even Mary, but the wonder of their travels now is that they're no longer defined by Kody's narrative of their lives. They're learning to find peace and strength on their own terms. Christine, for instance, has fully claimed her liberation in ways that cannot be denied. She's no longer simply the third wife in a cluster of wives seeking to make it work. She's no longer the woman who escaped a bad relationship and reclaimed her own happiness. The second she walked out of Cody, it was evident that she wasn't merely opting to leave a man. She was opting to walk toward herself. And let's discuss symbolism, because in reality, television symbolism says so much from the moment Christine moved out and took off. It wasn't simply about exiting the door, it was about breaking free from an old version of herself that had been drowning under Kody's dictatorship. The wedding ring slipped off, the burden of Kody's demands finally removed, and she's been radiant ever since. She's posted on social media flaunting her new life, her travels, her children, her new love, and each post is a testament to regaining her value one day at a time. Janelle, too, has found her own serenity, though. It's been quieter, more internal. She's not the loudest voice in the room, but that doesn't mean she doesn't carry power. Janelle has always been the practical one, the grounded one. But after all these years of giving, of emotionally supporting Cody and his chaotic lifestyle, you can see her starting to take back control of her own future. She's no longer waiting for Cody to come around or asking him for validation. Janelle's keeping her eyes on herself, on her business, on her children, and on her own happiness. It may not appear dramatic, but that inner strength is louder than any argument Cody could have hurled her way. And Mary, well, her path is a bit more tumultuous, but even she is finding her way out of the shadow of the family dynamics that once bound her so tightly. Mary's life has been one of emotional neglect, betrayal, and rejection. But there's something so beautiful in the way she's dealt with it. Her social media life is her stepping into a world beyond Cody, beyond the show, and finding people who like her for who she is, not as a wife. It's taken a slow process, but it's occurring. Mary may never completely recover from the years of manipulation emotionally, but no matter, she's gradually taking back herself, and that ain't no small task. Now let's discuss the show's symbols: holidays, weddings, rings, houses. For years, we saw the Brown family exchange rings, celebrate holidays, and perform rituals that were meant to represent coming together. But in fact, those activities were just a part of the facade Cody attempted to uphold. They were just props in a play that appeared only from the outside. But now symbols are transforming. For Christine, wedding ring is missing, but so is the weight of expectations for Janelle. Concept of home is transforming. She no longer needs to remain where Cody insists she should remain for Mary. Those holiday meals and family trappings are not anymore about pretense of family closeness, but about accepting the pieces of her life that make her whole. Healing isn't beautiful. It's not tidy. It's not gift wrapped with a bow, and it doesn't always appear like what we expected it to be. But that is the point, that each woman's path of healing is specifically their own. It's messy, it's raw, and sometimes it even feels like it's too late, but it's real, and that is where the power is. This family may have been defined by Kody's choices for so long, but now the women are creating their own definitions. They're not waiting for permission. They're not asking for validation. They're living life on their own terms, however messy, however imperfect. And as we've watched them do this on TV, we've also learned a powerful lesson for ourselves. Healing is messy, but it's still worth it. So if you've been following along with Christine, Janelle, and Mary, if you've seen them grow and evolve, if you've shared their pain and their victories, don't forget to celebrate that strength. Acknowledge how far they've traveled and how much farther they're going. These women have suffered so much emotional manipulation, heartbreak, public criticism, and yet they're still here, and they're doing it on their own terms. As we bid farewell to this part of their journey, keep in mind that healing isn't a straight line. It's all setbacks and epiphanies. But it's strong, and these women have shown that time and time and time and time again. So let's be there for them. Let's keep rooting for them as they rebuild not only their relationships, but their self too, because they've worked for it. Thank you for coming with me on this intimate emotional journey through the Brown family's transformation. If you felt the highs and lows, the heartbreaks and wins, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts with me. Whose journey do you feel most connected to? And what do you think is next for these women? I'd love to hear from you. And as always, thank you for watching TLC's Next Reveal.